I think the biggest one, and I think the rest of the panel might agree, is that we often hear, when you talk about traditional marketing, you think about a direct mail flyer, for example, with a QR code. You send that sort of thing out, or you have a phone system set up because you're trying to, bring in an elderly audience, right? Some people who aren't necessarily tech savvy. But in my experience, it's actually been more of a blended group than you might expect. I mean, yeah, older consumers are typically going to respond to traditional marketing more often than a younger audience, but that's not to say that they are the end all be all to that group. So it's typically more blended. You can get some different demographics in there. And then also I think too, when you drive down and kind of figure out, who is actually responding to what, you actually can jump into platforms like digital banking in my experience, and you'll see that, a lot of your elderly Americans and folks with, perhaps some more assets to their name are using digital banking way more than millennials. So, it's just, there's always kind of a blend, and you kind of have to dig into the data and figure out what's what.
The challenge with the multi-channel and kind of jumping on the coolest latest thing is you got to dip your toes in the water and just kind of test it out. You may not go public with it, but you got to at least see if it's right for you. That also raises the challenge of diluting your messaging across those different, say, let's just use social channels as an example. So to piggyback on Chandra and Ian, you have to be consistent with your brand voice, but different platforms require different types of messaging, different types of tone of voice to who you are as a company. And a lot of times, like financial services, for an example, you would use Instagram for maybe recruiting. You wouldn't use it or for, other ways to grab customer. There are different channels for different things. So working in financial services for 7 years, we kind of stayed away from TikTok out of the gate. So that was a very slow adoption. But then now, working in the telecom space, we do leverage all channels. But so that's one thing. And then to answer your question, as far as like trends that I think we need to pay attention to, and one of them is voice to search. So if you think about how people are doing, using Alexa, using Google, and searching for things now, how are we as marketers using SEO to, optimize for the voice search? And I think that that's something that we should look for in the future. And the only reason that this even popped up on my radar is because my son, when he searches for something, hey Google, hey Alexa. Yeah. It's all voice to search. So how can we optimize as marketers to do our best in capturing that audience?
Thankfully, well, we actually have 3 audiences we're messaging to. So we also go to realtors. And it has taken quite a bit of work to find common messaging threads that work for all 3 stakeholders that we can have on our website that are stakeholder facing for everyone. And so really spent a lot of time pinning that down. With that said, we certainly can't send the same type of materials. So each stakeholder group has their own materials built out with customized messaging that is tailored to the benefits that are useful to them and their needs. And actually within those groups, we've segmented them even more. So for instance, within lenders, mortgage companies, banks, credit unions, and then even within that kind of size. So we take a pretty tailored approach to reaching out to people. Yeah. This is like the bane of marketing's existence, back to attribution. So I try to balance, well, one, I try to re-emphasize where we are at a growth stage and say these are the metrics that we should be seeing hit, and it's really not feasible for us to see that conversion yet. Because if we're just starting on a new channel, we need a mass of followers before we can expect any of them to want to convert to our product, and they need to build trust with us over time. And of course, the people who are running sales, they want that to happen immediately. And so one thing I do is I try to pick metrics that are kind of backward facing metrics, current metrics, and future facing metrics. And then I try to present them with, this is where we should be right now, given our level of growth. This is what we should be seeing. So I think providing context around whatever metrics you do choose, and then making sure if your numbers are low, that you're also talking about growth. Okay, well, the overall number's not where we want it at yet, but the growth is really good, and we can tie that to X campaign. Where I find this to be, well, and then also multi-channel metrics. So this is where it gets really complicated. So for lenders, we'll do a lot of PR facing things that get them comfortable with our company and our product. But then ultimately the sales channel that maybe they come through on is an email campaign. But we never would have gotten them from that email campaign if we hadn't been on HousingWire, right? And so that, I don't think we've figured that out yet. And I think we're getting more sophisticated. Certainly the digital channels will track, okay, well, this person has been following us for this long on social media, and then they reached out. So we can do some of that, but it's very hard to do multi-channel attribution for us right now when we're talking about PR efforts and efforts that don't have a digital footprint that we can track.
More channels, more success and ROI, guaranteed. You forgot the most important word, Arun. Guaranteed. I don't think anybody on this call would use that word so liberally. No, I would also maybe even caution saying ROI guaranteed, because there are going to be, depending on your business model, Melody, you make a great point, depending on your foundation, right? Like, what are you working with? Just trying to open up all of the channels, or most at one time through a segmented kind of approach, is not necessarily going to generate the most ROI if your foundation is weak. If you're just starting to throw email and social and direct mail and all these things that don't exist in an organization without even really having that solid foundation, no, you're going to run into a problem where you have to answer for why you're spending so much money versus what you're bringing in. So that could be a danger.
Melody, for you, myth or a fact? Multi-channel marketing is expensive and needs a very large team to manage.
You know what? I bet everybody on this call has used the phrase, my team is small but mighty.
Yeah, lean. It's lean. We're lean.
Lean.
Lean and mean. And that is one of, automating things helps this process out, but working cohesively as a team also makes this very successful. So marketing is, it just depends on how much you're willing to invest. It's not necessarily expensive. There are things that we can do if you have the right tools in place that don't cost money, but you have to have the right tools in place in order to enact that. So yes, there is an investment in tools, but then as far as the people go, you have to work together as a team. So I say myth. And then can I snag this social media is for
I
B2C
almost had that for you. Yeah, I was like,
Okay.
I was waiting. Go for it.
So total myth, because it is all about the power of your network. And I tell my sales teams this all the time. It's that human to human connection that you have on social media, and making your team your ambassadors that make the sale happen. Research shows that there are the corporate channel doesn't even touch the network of your people's channel. So making them your advocates is probably one of the most successful things that I've seen work, and because your clients and their sphere of influence are connected to other people. So use your people.